All right, good. Well, I don't know if it's morning or afternoon when y'all are looking at this, but hello. um, Hope everybody is well and safe during the virus scare. I don't know. Like we're holding it together here. So most of my kids that are watching this know it's Miss Gallant, but if any other kids in the district are watching this, hi, I'm Miss Gallant from Benton High School. And here is a review of Unit 1 from back in August and September. And I just wanted to do a quick couple of review videos since y'all are out. And so we'll just jump right in. So we're going to review Activity 1 first. Activity 1 was on investigating patterns, and this whole thing was like looking at tables and looking at data and trying to find some patterns that explained what's happening in the data. So if you look, you should have some guided practice. You'll also have a page that's independent practice. This one I will not film. I'm going to leave this for you to do so that you get some practice, but I am going to film myself working this so you have some instructions for here. That's where it says see videos. There's also going to be a guide document that has written instructions on what I'm doing. Okay. All right, so let's just jump right in. So this table to the right is representing the hourly rental cost for a kayak. So first thing it asks us to do is describe any patterns you see in the table. So let's just go ahead and see what we notice. We see that the hours are increasing, and while the hours are increasing, so is the cost. That makes sense. It shouldn't cost me more to rent a kayak for an hour than it does for 10 hours. That wouldn't make sense. So they should both be increasing. These are increasing hourly here. But here, let's figure out what these are increasing by. If I take two consecutive terms and subtract them, I'll find that this is increasing by 7 between each hour. Okay, so what do we notice? The cost increases by $7 each hour. Okay, so but we don't want to say that it costs $7 an hour, because if it just costs $7 an hour, then for 1 hour it'd be $7, for 2 hours it'd be $14. There must be some other fee, because this starts at a higher rate. This starts at $25. So this must include some starting fee. Because it starts much higher than $7. And a lot of companies will do this. You'll, excuse me, you'll rent the actual kayak, and then it's $7 for every hour that you have it. So you'll rent the kayak for some cost, and then add $7 for every hour. All right, let's look at B. So if I wanted to rent the kayak for 6 hours, how much is this going to cost me? So there's a couple different ways to approach this. I think the easiest way, though, is for 4 hours, it costs $46. So how much does it cost for 5 hours and for 6 hours? So if all I'm doing is adding $7, we'll add $7 to 46. Let me find my notes where I have that worked out. I guess that would end up being $53. I don't know why that took me so long. And if I add another $7, that would be $60. And that's actually not what I did. That's why it took me so long to figure that out. What I did was, okay, from 4 to 6, that's 2 hours. So for 6 hours, I'm going to have to add $7 twice, which is $14. And 46 plus 14 would be $60. And that's what I explained below. So yeah, so we're just adding $7 till we get to 6 hours. Okay, graph the data from the table onto the grid and be sure to label your axes. So a couple of things that I harp on with my kids, they're probably sick of me saying this, is when you label your graph, you make sure that you space them evenly. What I'll see is a lot of people will skip one space and then they'll start skipping 2 or 3. If you're going to skip 2 spaces, you start by skipping 2 spaces. Remember, this is 0. And then whatever you're in count by, you skip that many spaces all the way through. It's a pet peeve of mine if you couldn't tell. Okay, so my x-axis should be the number of hours that I'm renting the kayak for. Oh, you can't see my label. Sorry, I'm working on a much smaller space than what I'm used to. Okay, so this is the hours that the kayak is rented, and then we're going to do cost. So you can go a couple of different ways. I went up by 5s, but I skipped one each time, so it kind of went by 10s. And we won't get perfectly on the corners each time, but, you know, math is not always going to be pretty, so... Now, we are going to make sure they are spaced evenly. And something I want to mention about that is it does affect the shape of your graph if you don't scale it properly. Like if you skip, like if you go from 1 to 2 to 3, like if you skip in between your tick marks, but still are going up by the same numbers, it's going to make your graph, if it's supposed to be a straight line, it'll look curved. If it's supposed to be curved, it could look straight. So you have to be very careful about that. Also, if I'll go like 5, 10, 15, 50, 80, 90, you know, and start skipping around, it's also going to screw up your shapes. That's why I'm so OCD about it, because it does ruin the shape if you don't scale it correctly. Okay, and then we're going to label this side as total cost. Hope I'm not giving anybody motion sickness. Like, I have to turn the whole camera to write on here. Okay, so we're going to just graph the data from the table. We are not graphing every single possible point. We're just graphing what they gave us in the table. So at 1 hour, it's going to cost us a total of $25. At 2 hours, it's going to cost us $32, which should be right above the 30. 3 is at 39, so right below the 40. And 4 is at 46. Which would be right about here. Okay, so let's just talk about the graph for a second. It does look like it's going to be linear, which makes sense because we're not going to charge random amounts per hour. We're going to have a fixed rate. Let's see, what else? It is discrete. It's not connected because between 1 hour and 2 hours, like let's say you only rent it for an hour and a half, they're going to charge you for the whole 2 hours. They're not going to sit there with a calculator and try to figure out the price in between hours. No, and actually, you're going to pay up front, so you've already paid for 2 hours. So even if you return it 30 minutes early, you're not getting money back. So there you go. All right. So notice I don't have a y-intercept like at 0, just because it doesn't make sense to rent a kayak for no hours. When we do, we will figure out how much a kayak costs at 0 hours, but that's going to be our initial fee. So there's that too. So it doesn't really make sense to have a cost at 0 hours, but when we figure out that cost, that's the initial fee plus the hourly, or without the hourly rate. So we'll figure that out, but it kind of doesn't make sense to say, oh, that's how much it costs if I don't take the kayak out at all. Like, no, that doesn't make sense. But we also don't want to put a point at 0, 0 because then it's like this funky shape. So yeah, so hopefully I didn't over-explain. Hopefully that made sense to you. All right, D, after renting my kayak, I pay a total of $74. How long am I renting my kayak for? All right, so I could keep going. I could keep adding $7 until I get to 74. We know it's 6 hours. It's $60. So at 7 hours, if I add $7 more, that's 67. At 8 hours, if I add $7 more, that's 74. So we could keep going that way. We could keep following our graph as well. So you could, I'm going to do this in a different color. You could plot some additional points. We know we figured out that at 6 hours, it is $60. Hold on. There we go. That would be right here. And you could, if you had a ruler or a straight edge, and you graph these correctly, like that's why I'm harping on this. You could figure out that, let's do it this way. Okay, at $74, I'd be right about here. Boom, 8 hours. You could figure out with a graph too. So yeah, there's a couple of different ways to go about this. But my favorite way, which is kind of the whole point of algebra, is to be able to use an expression or an equation to figure this out. So we're going to let N be the number of hours the kayak is rented, and we're going to write an expression that models the rental cost. So there's a couple of different values that we kind of have to recognize. The first one is what you're changing by, which is your common difference. It's what you're adding or what you're increasing by each time. So I'm increasing by $7 each time, so that's my common difference. So I'm going to put this here. Okay, and we also need our initial value. Now, we don't have the price at 0 hours. Now, we can figure that out, and in fact, we will in a minute. But we do have for 1 hour is $25. But I don't want to do 25 plus 7 per hour because 1 hour is only 25. It's not 25 plus $7 for the hour. It's already added that in. So what we're going to do is instead of saying 7 per hour, we're going to do 7 per N minus 1 hours. So what that's going to do is when I plug 1 in, 1 minus 1 is 0. It'll cancel out that $7 fee for the first hour because remember we want it to equal 25 for the first hour. And then for every hour after that, it only adds 7. It doesn't add an extra 7. Okay, so we're good here. So this is one way to write it. I know a lot of people get confused by that N minus 1 though. And in fact, I'm going to show you what you do. You can simplify this and you'll get the same thing as what I'm going to do in a second. Something else you could look at though is we could figure out how much this costs, how much the initial fee is. So if I subtract $7 from 25, that should leave me with $18. So my initial fee is $18, and then if I add $7 per hour, well, for 1 hour I'd get 25. For 2 hours I'd get 32. So you could do this as well. So these are two different ways of writing the same equation. Also, if you were to distribute the 7, so 7n minus 7, well, you'd have that 25 minus 7, which would give you 18, and you'd still have the 7n. So it's the same thing. So these two are equivalent. I'm pretty sure a quiz or test would accept either answer because they are the same thing. They're equivalent. I know personally with my kids, I would accept both. All right, F, write the rental cost as a sequence. So remember, a sequence is just a list of numbers. So we're going to take the cost, which for 1 hour was 25, for 2 hours were 32, 39, and 46. And then we're going to make sure we have an ellipsis behind it. That's that dot, dot, dot. So here's the rental cost written as a sequence. And it's just so that's it. It's just a list of numbers. G, is that sequence arithmetic? If so, identify the common difference. So the definition of an arithmetic sequence is a sequence with a common difference between consecutive terms. So basically, is there something I can add or subtract to get from one term to the next? And we've already figured that out. I'm adding $7 each time. So, yes, the sequence is arithmetic. The common difference is 7. Okay, so I hope this video was super helpful. I'm going to upload it to my YouTube and send it out to some teachers. So if you, honestly, my kiddos, feel free to reach out to me. Other kiddos, feel free to reach out to your teacher to if you need any extra advice or wisdom or help or anything. So I hope this video was helpful. Again, hope everybody's staying warm and safe and healthy during this really interesting time. That's the only way I can describe it. It's interesting. So anyway, we stopped my video. Y'all have a good day, and I will see y'all tomorrow. Or no, I won't. I will see y'all soon. Bye.